back with another episode of the Pop Culture Cosmos. It's Gerald Glassford. Come right back at you here at Pop Culture Cosmos, the Lakers Fast Break, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and of course, everything that we do right here at Pop Culture Cosmos, popculturecosmos.wordpress.com, and of course, everything we do out there with all the stuff that we do in the world of pop culture. Please go ahead and make sure you like and subscribe to get the latest notifications on when we go live on the air with the latest Lakers Fast Break, Game Source, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, or Pop Culture Cosmos. Of course, also as well, you got to go ahead and check out what we're doing today at Vampires and Vitae. Go ahead and check out all the amazing adventures they go on right there for you on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Plus also as well, Wizards and Wine, Wild Beyond the Witchlight, and everything that we do right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. Well, one of the reasons why I wanted to go ahead and record today's show is because I wanted to know, with all the news that's coming down in regards to Warhammer and the new series that Henry Cavill is looking to be a part of after he's vacated The Witcher in recent times. What is Warhammer? Why should you care about Warhammer? And is it time for you to get into the Warhammer IP? Well, the Warhammer IP in and of itself is a hugely expansive culture that hopefully more and more people will be a part of in the coming days, weeks, months, and years, because it is out there, not only as a tabletop gaming series, not only as a video game series in several different types of styles, whether it's first person, whether it's RTS, it doesn't matter. It's very versatile in the type of formats and features that it's been able to be presented out there. Also, as well, as far as videos, series have come before as far as in small leisures, but also, again, a larger series is going to be done. And here today to go ahead and give us instruction on Warhammer 101, obviously, of course, my fellow co-host in crime, it is Melinda Barkhouse Ross. Melinda, great to have you here, but you have a special professor guest with you today, the man that's most knowledgeable today on Warhammer 101.
Now I'm going to have to call him Professor for the rest of the night. Thanks a lot, Gerald.
That is sticking. Thank you for that one. That one is
well,
when
not going anywhere.
When it comes to the type of instruction that we need, and we do need to inform, be honest, it is with the Warhammer IP in and of itself, it is confined right now to a niche audience. And I think that for many, their first introduction to it is in interviews with Henry Cavill on The Witcher and other projects. When somebody offhandedly remarks about Warhammer, his eyes light up because he has been into it since he's been a kid. Right, Melinda? I know you've seen the interviews, but you and I, have a passing knowledge of all that it is Warhammer with the tabletop experience that both you and I have had. But when it comes to Warhammer, I know of no more expert than Robbie Ross when it comes to what we need to know on Warhammer. Correct, Melinda?
Well, yeah, that's fair to say. I can hold a very general, kind of conversation about Warhammer. But when you start getting into specifics about the Primarchs and all of that stuff, it very quickly goes over my head. And that's where Darling Husband comes in.
Professor Darling Husband?
Professor Darling Husband comes in to save the day.
So I ask you, Professor, we are students and our viewing and listening audience. When this comes about, I wanted to go ahead and make sure that we are an attentive class in Warhammer 101. So please go ahead, just let us know. Inform. You said, I know before we went on the air that you could go for hours upon it, but just basically, what would you want people to know in a synopsis of a show in regards to Warhammer, so they can get a jump on maybe delving into the world and universe of Warhammer?
I think that there's so many ways to enjoy this particular hobby. If you are a painter, you're going to enjoy this because you can sit down and you can just paint, not care about the lore at all, just enjoy the physical aspects of having the model, building the model, making your army. Then you could do playing. Like you could go out and actually meet people in real life, use these models, you know what I mean, and just play like the actual game itself. You could enjoy the lore by itself, just the stories in the book and the setting, which is my personal way that I like to enjoy it. Or you can go to these video games, all these things you've already touched on. So I think the best way to get people into it is just to have like a general understanding of like the timeline and the setting. The setting is really what I think grabs most people because it's a grim, dark setting. Most things are like high fantasy, and the good guys is going to win. You know, like when you walk in and you meet your main character, you know that he's going to get the girl at the end, and you know he's going to save the kingdom, and all this is going to happen. What is really fascinating about the grim dark setting is they'll spend chapters and chapters and chapters building up this character and showing their motivations and their kindness and the frailties within their Morrick fabric. And then, you know, halfway through the book, dead. Very much Game of Thrones like. I would almost very considerably consider this a Game of Thrones-esque setting. Now, though, these are knights in space and marines in space, where you know where the grim darkness comes in when it comes to Game of Thrones is that you just never know what people will do to further their edges, and I think there's a little bit of overlap in all of that. So I think the best way to probably tackle this would be to do like a timeline, like where the setting begins and how it became grimdark, because it actually starts very light. Or I could tackle it from what we could expect for Henry Cavill going forward, some of the things that he could play. But I can just, if I do it that way, then I'm just throwing out names. You know what I mean? Like I'll be like, oh yeah, he could play Sanguinius because he's the most beloved and kind son. But for anyone that doesn't know who Sanguinius is and where that fits,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like that doesn't, not necessarily very interesting to a person first approaching this, because they first of all love Henry Cavill. They're a big fan of his work and they know that he's going to respect the IP. So I think maybe if I just start at the beginning and like just make a condensed timeline to where he's probably going to pick up, I think that's probably going to give us our best answer about jumping into Warhammer 40K for the first time, because that'll just be the background, the actual, you know, the landing page, if you will, at a web page. It'll be something that is like a nice stable ground for you to then go explore yourself on. And if this interests you and you just like this bozo talking about one of his passions, maybe you'll be your own bozo and find this to be a new passion for yourself.
We can also recommend a few bozos for you to go check out on YouTube.
Oh, for sure.
If what you hear here intrigues you enough to want to go and explore the grim darkness a little bit more.
So as our narrator, what direction would you like me to go? Because I'm happy to tackle this in any shape or form.
Well, again, you know, when a series does come about, if it does come to fruition, and this recording that we do is ultimately going to pan out with Henry Cavill as the lead, because you know these things can fall through the cracks, but it is looking more and more like that's headed into a right direction.
Oh, Cavill be his name, man. I mean,
Yes.
like he's going to bring us to the promised land.
What do you think it would start, and what do you think it would cover in a series? Because that's probably where the basis of where everybody or most people that would be coming into the series of Warhammer would want to get started. Watching that, then they would want to get into the books, the tabletop games, the video games, etc., etc.
All right. Well, he is faced with a very big problem because he is only allowed to play one, right? That's the biggest problem. He has this huge love affair with the lore, and he has to settle down and be like, I'm going to do this one. So the easiest for them to do is going to be Kaivis Kane. Kaivis Kane is going to be a mix of a character he's already played. It's very Sherlock Holmes-ish, and a little bit James Bond. So in between that, that's definitely one of his archetypes. Now, what Kaivis Kane is he's essentially a piece of the Imperium, which would be like the human race in this alien world. And he would be somebody to motivate the troops. He'd be somebody to make sure that they're willing and stiffen up the backs of your basic guardsmen. Somebody that actually is going to go fight these giant wars for the Imperium itself, for mankind, to keep on sticking on this world that is constantly trying to destroy them. One of the reasons it would be the easiest for him to be able to follow that is because it is cavalier. It is fun. The entire book series, I would definitely recommend it as a starting place for anyone that really wants to get into the lore. This is a place to start. So it's a good place to start the movie series or series. It also leads it up to multiple movies in a row because you can follow Kivas Kane and meet the different alien species that are in it as he goes through. He's also very self-deprecating within the lore itself. It's pretty much one of the largest heroes of the Imperium that is writing his own personal memoirs. And in his memoirs, he's saying, I'm really not that big of a hero. I've just spent my entire life trying to save my own skin. And this was the story behind me trying to save my own skin. Yes, I'm useful. Yes, I have, all these tricks and things up my sleeve, but this is how I survived. This is why they built the statue. And if you really looked at the true history behind it, this is where it came from. A lot of it's actually told also from one of his lovers during the book series. She goes back after his death and redoes his memoirs and puts it into context for the larger Imperium. So that would be a wonderful spot for anyone to start, or for Henry Cavill to choose. The problem therein lies is that once he becomes this character, he doesn't get to be a Primarch. Now,
Right.
now you're asking yourself, what's a Primarch, right?
That's what we
Yeah,
want to see Henry Cavill
yeah,
as,
right.
though.
Of
Well, due
course.
respect, we want to see him as a Primarch.
Yes.
Excuse me.
So a quick answer to what a Primarch is in the center of this Imperium, and it's led by one man. That would be the Emperor of Mankind. It would be the center being that had a great plan after a huge dissolving of man's zenith. So we were doing great when it came to technology and like our standing in the universe itself. We almost became like the police nation of the universe. But how we achieved that was to use artificial intelligence. And we used it more and more and more. And we worked hand in hand with it for a long time. And it's that old trope, Terminator movie.
Right.
If you give an AI long enough time, it will finally realize that you are no longer necessary
Yeah.
and actually the problem, the chink in the armor for a better answer. So all those great pieces, all these pieces that we've made, they turned on us. If you enjoy the series Dune, that'll be the preset, the pre things before the first book. You'll find the Imperium of Man and the Dune series very similar when it comes to like the backwards working of technology.
Sure, yeah.
Because you can no longer you still need to travel the galaxy, but now you need to remove all those tools that you've made to to make that trip happen. So the Emperor Man comes around. He's been around for a very long time, but after the fall of humanity, he picks up the pieces and decides that he wants to craft something stronger, more secular. You have all these religions, all like that's destroying the earth itself and all of its colonies out there after the draw. You just have these techno barbarians that have taken the great works of the minds from the society that has fallen and like do their own factions. Well, humanity's falling because of that, because humanity's greatest strength in this particular series is its unity, its ability to throw man and believe in one single thing and drive its work towards this single goal. Well, the Emperor was able to facilitate that. He gets to a point in his wars of trying to reunite mankind, and he realizes he needs help. He can't be in all places at all times. He is just a man. He just happens to be the greatest of all men. So he goes in and he finds. Now I am transing over 10,000 hours.
There are people out there going,
"Oh my
"What?"
god!" In the comments, they're like, "Are you kidding me? You're not going to talk about all that stuff?" Yeah, I'm trying to really condense this down. So he realizes that he's going to need help. The only things that he can figure out of using help is the best aspects of himself, 20 different aspects of himself within his own sons. he goes and he makes essentially a deal with the devil to get the power to be able to create these suns. Where the devil comes from is the warp, and that's another 25 hours if you want to talk about it that way. But he then goes into a a bargain essentially. The story goes, and this can be said multiple different ways, but he essentially cheats the warp out of the power to create these suns. After he's like in the process of making them, these are like refined 20 individuals of the best of humanity, because he is the best, right? He's
Right.
the singular person that is the pinnacle of what we can achieve. He takes 20 aspects out and he starts creating them. Well, the warp gets mad because he's obviously bamboozled this
What's the warp?
powerful. The warp is a collection of the psyche of man.
Okay.
So hate, love, war, passion, creation, friendship, absurdity. If you're obsessed about something, all these heightened emotions, they're concentrated in a space that then a psyker in this world. So if you're like a fan of Wheel of Time, for example, it would be the weave. If you're a fan, just a a source to pull power from. These entities have been uh, pissed off. The deal wasn't fair, so he steals his sons away and puts them in different locations before that they are able to be trained directly from his father for their actual purpose of this great crusade that he's trying to reunite all the past and lost pieces of man. As they get taken away, they get changed by their environments. They get infected by the places that these creatures of chaos, the warp, have sent his sons. And that's one of the characters that any huge fan of the Warhammer series, that's going to be one of the things that they desperately want Henry to play, because they're
The warp?
oh no, the Primarchs, the
Oh,
sons.
okay. Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
I can't imagine him not playing a Primarch.
It's very difficult because they're huge, bombastic. They're
Yeah.
they're
They're the
personifications.
showstoppers.
Oh, of course,
Yeah.
man. This is
Yeah.
this is your head pitcher. This is your goalie. This
Yeah.
is your this is your home run hitter during the 90s. I mean, like this is definitely a huge aspect of what it is to be human itself. And so for him to start at Kivas Kane and not to play one of these pinnacles, it's almost a disturbance. I mean, it's almost a letdown, but he
Yeah.
could play both. I mean, he really could play both.
So I ask you, my friend, with all that said, in one of the most common phrases along with Warhammer is 40,000K. So I ask you, when it comes to 40K, especially when it comes to the video games, they usually like attaching that in order to go ahead and get even more in association with the Warhammer series. How does the 40,000K come into play?
Okay, so that's it's pretty much the 40,000th world. Like take right this moment and go up. It's 40,000 years from now. You
Okay.
know what I mean? Like, so where
40,000 years
yeah,
into the future.
yeah. So like right when the Primarchs are made, you're still in the 30Ks. So these beings live for a long time. I mean, like they're essentially immortal. So their struggles and their wars, they come from from a very long perspective. You have to have a large, fish-eyed lens to see their stretch of their time. So the K is just in relevance of like where it is now. Like we're at 2000.
Almost like a
we're at
millennium,
20K.
the 40th millennium, the
Yes,
41st millennium. In
yes.
this
So like
case.
so like right now would be 20K.
Okay.
So when he starts making his Primarchs, it would be 30K. Where the main setting happens is going to be 40K.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, but don't miss out on 30K, because that's where like the great divide kind of
Yeah,
happens.
so 40K isn't a reference to the amount of novels that you have to read in order to understand the
No,
universe.
no.
That's not what it means.
It almost is.
I mean,
from the
but
70s.
we're
but
trying
yeah.
to get people to want to
Yeah.
get in.
Oh, dude, you're gonna love
Come
it.
on.
Yeah.
Well, again, also as well, when it comes to the Warhammer series, one of the things that's out there that people may be able to relate to is if when it comes to the Halo, it's in a space marine type concept. It's soldiers, it's battles, it's wars, it's conflict. One of the things that Warhammer is famous for is its space marines. And you talked about whether it's you're creating or crafting or designing smaller Space Marines for your, if you want to go ahead and actually play that out on a tabletop format, or if you're actually going out and playing one of the many versions or reading one of the many versions of the IP that's out there. Space Marines are part of this equation. How important is the Space Marine to this whole concept of Warhammer?
As the Emperor is to his Primarchs, the Space Marines are to its Primarchs. You know what I mean? Like, so like they're his sons, the actual Space Marines themselves, a lot of the main characters when it comes to the novels, they're the sons of the Primarchs. So they took the gene seed and that personified brilliance of that aspect of humanity, and they have now personified that within their small army. Well, not small, huge galactic size army. But so if you have, for example, we'll use Sanguinius. Sanguinius is a very beloved son of the Emperor. Probably like he's picked first, right? When you're picking teams as a kid, you know, like dodgeball.
Yeah.
He's not the strongest. He's not the smartest. He's just like the most relatable. He's the kindest. So with his sons, he's developed that kind of compassion for humanity. The person that pursues art instead of violence, if possible. If you could talk your way out of it or see the heart of your enemy, to respect it. So like as that like sieves down, gets it like if you're mining for gold, you start with the big nugget, which is the Emperor of Mankind, right? That's the big $1 million piece. And then after that is the smaller nuggets. That's going to be your Primarchs. And then you get down to the dust, but it's still all gold. It's just a reduced version of those core basic principles.
Once again, I have on Robbie Ross, Professor Robbie Ross.
If you look at the chart, you'll see, you know.
Yes, he is instructing us today on Warhammer 101 to give you a better idea why the Warhammer series may be something you want to get into, whether it's in books, whether it's in video, whether it's in video games, whether it's on the actual tabletop series. Please go ahead and check it out today. Just type in Warhammer 40K and it'll come right up for you. Melinda, your time with the professor, you've learned, and by osmosis, some of the Warhammer series. What, as a more casual observer, before I get back into the professor once again, do you enjoy most or admire most about the Warhammer series?
Well, okay, so mine is going to be incredibly rudimentary in comparison to what Robbie knows and his experience with it. And I think that what what I enjoy really is learning the different Primarchs, because then they almost become like your favorite sports teams. And you back your favorite sports teams. And when you go, and if you do decide you're going to start investing, God rest your soul, investing in all of the minis and in the paints and the terrain and all of that stuff that you use to play, you know, then you get your team and you start building your team. And so I think that I've really enjoyed the very shallow knowledge that I have on the different Primarchs and kind of what they represent. Like you've got you know, my favorite is the Ravens Guard. I think that's still accurate. Yeah, the Ravens Guard, I enjoy them. I also like the Wolf guys.
Yes, Space Wolves.
I know, go ahead, make fun.
No, are you kidding me? I got a wife that enjoys this. I'm never gonna make fun.
Yeah, you know, those are all great and those are all very fun, but you know, there are orcs in this world. There are the Harlequins, which I think you should touch on briefly a little bit. There's also the sisters. You need to talk about the sisters. Absolutely. Because when you're a girl and you're sitting down and you're looking at this, you're like, this is an incredible universe, but I'm not going to be a Space Marine because they're all clones, basically, right? And
yes,
ish.
There's a way. Yes.
Ish. Okay.
Yes.
Just for the sake of this conversation. Yes. So, you know, you hear a lot of people going, well, where do women fit into this universe? Because even the world of man still needs some women in it. So, you know, maybe touch on, you know, what the sisters are up to and what they do and why they're powerful and why they can stand shoulder to shoulder with all of these Space Marines and stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. When it comes to the Sisters of Battle, And there's more than just the Sisters of Battle. I mean, like if you look at the larger Imperium, in fact, a lot of the novels have your main hero going to be a woman that could be the pilot of the largest space marauder going through things and her decisions making it
Oh God,
happen.
the walking castles. I
Yeah,
forgot
right.
about
Yeah, I
those.
mean, like there's so many different things that women are completely not. In fact, I think very purposely put in to make sure that the universe is nice and filled with a very good demographic of different perspectives that lead to the same place. But the Sisters in Battle specifically were made during and after the Great Crusade. The Emperor had already been defeated, not defeated, he won, but is now trapped upon this golden throne that is keeping the Imperium not just safe, but like a lighthouse in the center of this horrible, dark galactic area. So he's currently stuck, right? Then throughout, to his chagrin, people have become talking about the Emperor as a god. So obviously, a religion kind of comes up about that, and people start worshiping as a god. Well, with power comes destruction, and with destruction comes, people really taking advantage of other people who have less power. Comes in a cardinal. Sorry, I don't know if it's a cardinal or not. There may be a different term for him, but a man of religious, very huge power comes in and starts taking over large swaths of the universe away and making his own intentions known through essentially zealots, people that are too afraid to go against the church, and believe fervently in this man, even though he's not teaching whatever the emperor would have wanted in the first place. And they come across this huge band of women that have absolute faith in the emperor. Well, in this universe, belief, like the warp, just like those emotions like pain and anger, they manifest. It actually grants power. So faith, true faith within a divine source or a divine thing like the emperor, creates power. He realizes the power these women have, their true divine faith, and he completely manipulates them. They are kind of on a backwater world. They don't know about all the technology that the Imperium has, and he asked one of his people to shoot him in the face. Like he's like, no, pick this up. I'll show these women that the emperor himself protects me. And he does. The guy has a force field on, essentially, made in a Crozius, and it rebounds. So all these super devoted, highly trained women that protect this little backward world, they see this. They like, yes, the emperor does have faith within you. You know what I mean? Like, so we will follow you. We will do all of this. So they get into this, and they go and they massacre all these worlds with the power of these, all these Sisters of Battle or Sisters of Silence, or the little combination of the two in the beginning. And finally, this guy comes back to the home world, Earth, or Toral, or whatever you want to call it, right at the time, and they, finally get to have a meeting with the God-seated Emperor. And the emperor's like, yeah, screw this guy. He's definitely doesn't have your back. He definitely doesn't have my back. Can someone shoot him? And the emperor can't really talk because he's stuck on this thing, but he makes an exception. He brings all of this consciousness back to have one conversation with the leader of this woman, and she just executes him. In fact, he has one of the best lines: "I'm too busy to die," right as they're massacring him. And they become this new order that have true belief in the empire, like true belief in the emperor himself. So like they're just as powerful as Space Marines. Well, in different ways. Like the Space Marines, like in a fist fight, could win, but if you use their faith, it's as if blows that should have landed wouldn't.
Right.
Like shots.
Faith is a shield.
Yeah,
sort
right.
of.
Yeah, shots that are too perfect. They hit, they hit the actual the inch mark, like Star Wars. Like it has to go through that hole. They'll make those shots with the faith of the Emperor. So they're just as useful on the battlefield. They're just using a different set of powers, essentially, to create the Crusades going forward.
I
Well,
love
there you
them.
go.
I think they're fascinating.
It sounds fascinating indeed. And once again, I have on with me Professor Robbie Ross. You got to go ahead and check out what he's doing today as part of Vampires and Vitae, wherever you get your
Yeah.
podcasts, and on YouTube. Please subscribe today as he guides his players, including his wife, Melinda Barkhouse Ross,
True.
on an adventure that only you can see and you have to see to believe. And you can go ahead and check it out today at Vampires and Vitae. Also, as well, go ahead and check out the great adventures that they have with Wild Beyond the Witchlight and Wizards and Wine today. They're great role playing games that they have on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. So we get more into Warhammer 101 with, again, the reason why that we're even creating this. It's not just because to respect and to introduce people out there to the great lore that is the Warhammer IP, but I just feel like the Warhammer IP has been on an island
Oh
in and
yeah.
of itself that only a few have managed to go ahead and get on the boat and and just go over to and enjoy and appreciate over the years, and it's done fine. It's just just goes along through each and every year. It's like with all the big titles and the big IPs that come out on various formats, the Warhammers just chugging along, chugging along, chugging along, chugging
Yep.
along. And I
Very
saw,
devoted fan service.
and I was recently in a tabletop gaming store, and I wanted to get a better idea of how much lore of the Warhammer series is in the realm of tabletop gaming. And I went there and it dominated
Yeah.
one entire huge wall full of Warhammer. Not just the miniatures that you can create, design, and paint, not just that, but just the actual board games itself, the modules, the extensions, things of that nature. Just dozens and dozens of things that are now available on it. But the reason why, obviously, I want people to get involved and interested in Warhammer is because there's going to be most likely a series, whether or not it's headed by Henry Cavill as of this recording. I'm assuming it is because he's got such a passion for it. But at some point in time, the world's going to have to come and understand Warhammer. What does it mean to you when you're talking about Warhammer to someone? How do you get them to try and connect with it? And what do you think that this series will do ultimately for people out there to get into Warhammer?
Well, I think that when you say the grim darkness, right? Like that's a really fun poppy phrase. But what it really is the definition of the human condition, I believe, is strife.
Mhm.
Like that is the idea. Why do we achieve anything? It's because of struggle. When you're walking through any of these novels or the battle, the battle texts or the video games or the RPGs, what you're going to find is strife, and that what the human condition can do and will do to overcome for a singular focus of survival. So it is unlike the other things that you're going to read, because if you're a big, huge fantasy fan or sci-fi fan, it comes a little bit formulaic at some point. You know what I mean? All the great works have been done, and most artists stay away from things that, when you read something, you have to close the book and go, "Are you kidding me? That's what happened? That's how he died? That was her end?" You know what I mean? And they don't shy away from it. It is, you can read novels about a simple guardsman living in a, first day on the job, and they're going to fight an unending horde of outrageously vicious monsters. So bad guys, no, there's no gray area of their soul. We just got to go kill these guys. And the idea of that novel is this horde coming at you, and this danger, and what it is just to be a normal person standing up, with your fellow man in arms against an insurmountable odds, but what the community is in between the simple guardsmen themselves. And then you get to the next, chapter, and it will be a general that is willing to sacrifice 10,000 of those individuals to get to the bigger issue. You know what I mean? Like that is what the entire thing is. And him dealing with the morality of like, no, I got to send 10,000 guys out to die so I can get this tank brigade over here to make this shot on another plot. And then you'll get to another one that is like a master of realms, somebody that has more and more influence, and deciding to destroy entire worlds worth of people one after another, like entire worlds without any warning, without any fanfare, just to starve out an invading alien horde. And then you get to another level, and then you can go a Primarch that can now argue and start to deal with the Xenos, the aliens that are attacking, and be like, no. Then you can have the political conversation in between all of that, and then you can go, no, we want to talk about the actual places that grip the human soul, and make a man change and go against humanity. And what is it to fight against a larger entity, and what is it to combat something that is that opaque and hard to nail down. And then you get to the very top of like what it is to fight a god versus a god, and you're going to have all of that within these, from the 1970s to now, of novel after novel. That's a continuous theory and a driving force. And you can tie into any of those things that you like. If you like the Guardsmen, you're not going to run out of Guardsman book. If you like the big overarching battles, you're not going to run out of those. If you like the internal struggle with the soul, one of Melinda's favorite stories is the Emperor destroying the last church on earth.
Oh my God, it's incredible, that story.
I mean, like, and how small is that, right? So you have a man that believes in God fervently, that is meeting essentially a god, and then for that god to tell you that God does not exist and to burn down your last church, like, in existence on earth. I mean, like, so you can make, I mean, that's so small. The entire book is about the burning of one building, that's nestled within all of these stories of galactic war.
I'll tell you what, though, I'm very, very impressed with the type of knowledge you've been able to drop down for us, Professor Robbie
I'm gonna
Ross.
get if you're not careful, I'm gonna get a monocle.
There you go. Absolutely. And don't forget your top hat as well to go ahead
and a cardigan with leather patches on the elbows.
Yes,
Perfect.
absolutely. And a cane. Got to get you a cane as well.
Yeah,
Yes, for the
yeah.
complete look on that. Once again, it is Robbie Ross. Please go ahead and check out him, and also, of course, his lovely wife and the whole crew at Vampires and Vitae, right there for you on YouTube. But before we head on out, my friend, I want you to go ahead and elaborate one last time why you have the love that you do for Warhammer, and then give everybody the lowdown on what kind of stuff that you guys are up to always at the Vampires Vitae.
Truly, why you should get into it is because if it's a mountain that you get to mine. It is, you're going to be able to jump into any aspect of any nerd hobby and be like, well, I like RPGs. We got you. We got you with Rogue Trader. Well, I like to be by myself and just relax and just paint. Bro, we got you. Not just got you, we got a community that follows every aspect of this. For normies, for people that aren't into any nerddom, this is going to be one of the largest stories ever told. As soon as Henry Cavill throws this into the mainstream, this will be on everyone's line. It is so robust and filled with everyone's desire to see something other than the mundane. It is not a remake. It is not, you're not going to be seeing a live action version compared to, I mean, like, this is purely and utterly an untapped resource with some of the best materials, some of the best writing. Heck, if you're a Shakespeare nerd, are you kidding me? This is modern day Shakespeare sometimes. If you want something slash and drag, like to Rambo, we got Rambo for you. We literally have entire guys that are made as the Rambo series. So if your interest is Shakespeare and Rambo, this one hobby has Shakespeare and Rambo in it. If you want to see the darkest ideas of what it is to lose your soul to misery, and like you just like the darkness, we have entire books that the bad guy are the main characters, and they do incredible jobs of making that relatable and understandable of why this person has made these paths and what it is to be a bad guy in a bad universe and still have a semblance of soul. If you want to see the true etheric legend of Arthur coming up and fighting against the dragon, that literally happens in this series. is. There's no aspect because it is so large and it's so robust. But the key is that it's cohesive. All of those little puzzle pieces that I'm talking about fit seamlessly into a larger, grander story. And you can stay on your fringe as long as you want, but the moment you want to cross over to the other side, you're just going to have it there for you. And my last little cherry on top, Henry Cavill is someone that has been willing to put down money, put down bags, put down fame, and only care about a material. That is what was needed if someone was ever going to try to make the Warhammer series. And you have Cavill, you have the name, you have the respect, and he may get it done. If anyone could, you have one of the largest stars in the world that's going to bring this to the mainstream. So get on it now. That way, when all of your friends are like, oh my God, this is amazing, you can be like, yeah, but do you know about the Inari? Like, that's I think that's what it is. As far as what I do, me and my beautiful wife, we both do two incredible role-playing games from two different systems. She's doing currently Carnival at the Witchlight, Wild by the Witchlight. Sorry,
The Wild Beyond the
Wild
Witchlight.
Beyond the Witchlight, which is a wonderful.
We're actually doing the finale tomorrow, where both tables are coming together in this huge epic battle. I mean, I hope it'll be epic and not a disaster.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's
Or
a
an
team.
epic disaster.
Yeah, yes, that
Yeah.
could be just as good.
I suppose.
That's a team from Canada coming in to play a team with Vegas and have a huge melee against a bunch of hags, and it's going to be fantastic. I'm so excited for that. What we're working on currently for Vampires and Vitae, that's going to be our third season. This is a lot of my other, please check them out. If you want big stories, you definitely have that from season 1 and season 2. On season 3, we brought it back down into a much more simple man's journey through a Western. So what would it be like if vampires were trying to begin a startup town, a ghost town, and bring it to fruition when it comes to the Wild West as a bunch of anarchs? So if you're into vampires and you're into Westerns, you can definitely check us out there.
Awesome indeed. It is, again, Professor Robbie Ross. Please go ahead and check out all the great work that he has done today and every single time out at the Vampires Vitae. His lovely wife, as my fellow co-host for the PCC Multiverse, Belinda Barkhouse Ross. She does a tremendous job with Wild Beyond the Witchlight. Go ahead and check out what she's doing today at Wizards and Wine, wherever you get your podcasts on both these great shows. Always go ahead and subscribe if you can on YouTube for all of us, all these great shows, including the Pop Culture Cosmos. If you have any questions on Warhammer that I can go ahead and send to the professor anytime at all, go ahead and post it below on YouTube, or also as well Pop Culture Cosmos on social media. Or you know what? You could always email it the old-fashioned way, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, Melinda and Robbie, I truly appreciate you taking the time in all the hubbub that we deal with on a weekly basis about the world of pop culture. And it's so funny because, again, we always talk about video games, we always talk about movies, talk about television, we talk about role playing, talk about a whole bunch of things that Warhammer already touches on.
Yeah.
And it
Sure.
only looks like it's going to get bigger once the Henry Cavill series comes to fruition. If it comes to fruition, which most likely it will come to fruition. I think his sheer passion in the series and the IP of Warhammer will only get it done. So I think that once that comes about, there'll be this renewed fascination for Warhammer that I know everyone will start appreciating and will want to ask more questions. So hopefully they will reference this video in the long run to go ahead and do just that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
All right. Well, once again, it is Professor Robbie Ross. Go ahead and check them out today at Vampires of Vitae, along with his lovely wife, Belinda Barkhouse Ross. And she is always helping me out when we cover the latest news and trends in pop culture, always right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos.